Welcome to Murkmud, Casita. Here you shall seize the summoning stone from Mandalf the Maroon and rid this fetid place of his presence. Activate the forge. Behold, the last colossus of the Aureate army of Feastus.
War for the Overworld is an RTS video game developed by Brightrock Games. This video is covering a DLC for that title. In the game, players build dungeons containing a host of deadly traps, mischievous minions, and use a variety of spells, potions, and other constructs to kill adventuring heroes that enter your dungeon, or to attack enemy constructs throughout the underworld. This is all in a bid to wage a war for the Overworld. There's a campaign mode where you can wage this war, or you can play against the AI or other players in a sort of Underlord v Underlord mode. This game's inspired by Dungeon Keeper, StarCraft, Overlord, and Evil Genius, and you can see all of those inspirations dripping through in the level design, game systems, and general aesthetics. It's got a very hammy British humour to it, like the Overlord games, with the premise and overall gameplay feeling like Dungeon Keeper, and some missions feeling oddly like StarCraft when you're having to micromanage some heroes. I actually covered the game on this channel, and there should be something on the screen here. This video is about one of the DLCs, Heart of Gold, and this takes these mechanics into 4 new levels with a different protagonist to the main game. This video is going to be talking about that. Casita, an underlord obsessed with gold, has been tasked by our dark god to capture an artifact that can produce infinite gold before the events of the first game can be reversed with it.
I love gold! The look of it, the taste of it, the smell!
There's 3 main points really on how this expansion builds and changes on the original release. Level scope, gameplay, and the NPCs. To start with level scope, there's 4 levels in the expansion, with only 2 of them introducing new units for your usage. So there isn't really any tutorial sections, which I quite liked as a feature. Each mission you've got the full scope of your Underlord abilities, and you can tackle each mission in a variety of ways. Of course, there'll always be some meta route for doing things, but for the most part you're not pressured into completing the missions, you're pressured by your dwindling resources. The levels, well, 3 of the 4, may come across as gimmicky to some players, as they tend to include a unique mechanic or an optional mission objective, but I like the change to the loop. The levels as a whole have a larger scope, they're more detailed, there's more routes through them, and a lot of them have some fun achievements tied to them. Level 2, for instance, has one where you can complete the level without the Empire discovering you. It obviously takes different tactics from a casual approach, but I found the levels were just so much better all around. Well done, developers. The gameplay is more of an optional critique. You're given some units that you can heal with gold instead of mana, and you're also given a couple of units / constructs that can produce gold from combat. While you're given some lovely levels to work through, you can blast through all of them by doom stacking these gold sentinel units and nothing else. I'm sure there were units you could do this with in the base game, but it wasn't so in my face there. You're given the very tempting option to cheese your way through the levels, meaning they don't require any skill to blast through. They've given you some quite unique problems to solve, but a rocket launcher to solve them with. It's a very big balancing issue, but like I said, it's optional. If you don't cheese, you won't see it as a problem. This is all around the 2 additional units that you can get. The balance just isn't great with them. They completely ruin some of the good, complex bits of gameplay that the levels present. If you just spam golden sentinels, you'll win. I almost expected some levels to really test me, making me use all of my units and skills. This is an expansion to a game that you probably would have completed beforehand, but no. On the flip side of this, in terms of level design, you can approach a lot of the levels from a very broad approach, even the last one of the DLC, and I think this kind of outweighs the need for challenge. Like, I can make my own challenges, and it's nice that the game gives me enough options to do that. The NPCs in this expansion are very full of character. It's quite hammy in all the best ways, reminded me a lot of the comedy in the Overlord games. Mandalf the Maroon stands out from the first mission.
Possess the power of my radish-infused stuff. Oh.
He protects a summoning stone you need to acquire to advance, and whenever you kill him, he'll respawn as a different colour, riffing on Gandalf the Grey. He laments about his suicide spells and his stained robes, and he does make me laugh. Throughout the expansion, you get a whole host of nobles from House Magnanimous, and they're all rather vocal and rather funny. It's more of the stuff I enjoyed in the base game.
Mandalf the what?
Stay at your business, or I'll get very angry.
I appear to have underestimated this wizard. He must have hidden the summoning stone elsewhere.
The story is exceptionally streamlined in this DLC. There's only 4 levels and not a whole lot of exposition held within. Casita, the Underlord you play as, is after a magical gold-producing artifact, held by House Magnanimous. The game's expecting you to have played it to completion before hitting this DLC, and we're going to go exactly what happens in this game, so in the next sections, expect spoilers not only for the DLC, but the game beforehand.
The Empire was destroyed. But now Festus, the volcanic land of House Magnanimous, stirs and rallies. The Duke of Festus wields the Heart of Gold to summon endless treasure. With this wealth, he could reconstruct the Empire. Worse, rebuild it with golden bricks. The Heart of Gold lies deep beneath Mount Festus. Only the Colossus, a lost golden guardian of this land, can breach the vault. Find me the Colossus, and when Festus is on fire, the Heart of Gold will be yours. You do desire gold, don't you, Casita?
This seemingly takes place after the end of the campaign from the main game, on a different region, the realm of Festus. We're playing as Casita this time, an enemy Underlord in the first campaign who was obsessed with gold and wealth, the perfect tool for the Dark God to send after an artifact that makes infinite gold. Something that bothered me was the timelines. If at the end of the last game, Mendacus was killed along with the main character Overlord, how is he back? Maybe this was some undisclosed time after, before the Empire was rebuilt. But where was the story that we left with Kira about to rebuild the Empire? It feels slightly too close to a continuity error here. I don't know if it's intentional, but it feels not. Knock off a point for sloppy writing when all we want is that delicious sequel. The DLC is positioned as a sequel, but in reality it isn't. Or at least I kind of thought it was. It's completely standalone and doesn't fit into the timeline at all. With that highlighted, what actually happens in the campaign.
Only once we have the stone can we resurrect the Colossus. And only the Colossus can retrieve the Heart of Gold. Mandalf has cast a goodly charm upon this realm, preventing gateways forming from the underworld.
Level 1 is entitled The Wizard, and it takes place in Murkmud. Casita's been set on her quest to retrieve the Heart of Gold. The only problem, it's locked in a vault where only the Golden Colossus can breach it. A legendary artifact creature that the Festians once had legions of. Think Hellboy 2 The Golden Army. In fact, now that I make that reference, I realise the Colossus has some striking resemblance to them, and I think I know where they got the idea from. Anyway, to summon a Colossus, we need to get a summoning stone to forge one. The wizard Mandalf the Maroon guards the location of the stone, and so we need to defeat him to move forward. Worst of all, he's cast a goodly charm on the realm, preventing our underworld gateways and the source of our armies. So we need to find neutral units in the realm, or rely on Casita's new unit, the Sentinel. Sentinels are built like any other defensive construct, using parts from a forge, so we either need chundas to make the parts, or mana to make the parts. They're made entirely of gold, and so will rinse your coffers at payday. That's meant to be the trade-off for them. Though you can use a special spell to heal them using gold instead of mana, so it's busted. Provided you have enough gold, which you will, you can just keep healing them, and really you've got no excuse for a single sentinel to die in combat. If all battles are a battle of attrition, your units won't tire, chip damage won't last, and you can just march your little gold horde through Mandalf's defences. We need to capture Mandalf and interrogate the information out of him, which actually makes this mission more interesting than it sounds. Mandalf will top himself if captured and left in your jail too long. Changing his robes in a fashion similar to Gandalf, he'll go through the whole rainbow of colours doing this. After doing such, he'll appear at one of the gateways around the map, so we have to smash those to stop him from running off, and find a neutral succubus on the map to interrogate him, as we can't bring new minions in through the gateways. Well done, developers. The actual gameplay of this mission is send your sentinels to smash anything and mind your way into the enemy's territory. You don't have infinite gold on this mission, but it is plentiful, so you're on a bit of a clock, but not really. Mandalf as a whole is the star of this mission, with his dialogue making me chortle.
Is he challenging you, Underlord?
If you want a sensory nightmare, have a look at me healing my sentinels. These things can cross lava too, so really it is just a case of throw them at anything around the map, and you will be doing that throughout this whole DLC. With enough perseverance, you'll crack through Mandalf's many lives and get the succubus to make him talk. Welcome to the fold, Mandalf the Gold.
Wish by the Lord.
The mission, despite not taking any actual tactical strategy, was quite fun. You get to experience the nice slow burn of churning through your enemy, turning over the stones looking for key minions you need. The level's like a big golden cigar.
Sugar and a waffle?
Level 2, the Summoning Stone, is in Road. It's a route by which House Magnanimous once transported gold to the Empire, and it's this cool underground Silk Road. It reminds me of Moria or somewhere like that. You have to search through various shrines in the area to uncover which one might have the Summoning Stone, and it's quite random. You spawn off to the side of the road, and for once, the enemy's unaware of your presence. Both times I played through this level, I went for the optional achievement of finishing the level without being seen, and honestly, I think this is the way it was meant to be played. It's a very fun challenge. Waves of enemies will cross the road, and you need to make use of some of the more underutilised mechanics to sneak past them. Spirit Worker potions give you temporary minions the enemy can't see, and outpost constructions let you claim territory away from your main base, so you don't have to send normal minions to claim everything. It's a very fun challenge trying to use this combination to sneakily chip away at bits of the map, using your god powers to drop combat minions to the shrines after walling them off with false earth. This mission felt like a big heist, and while you have more than enough firepower should you be discovered, the tension and increased challenge of using a different tactic than just throw a load of gold shit at the enemy makes for a very fun and engaging level indeed. It reminds me of the tomb raiding mission of the main campaign, where you had to rely on smaller groups of units and a heavier dose of micromanagement to achieve your goals. Like, sure, you can just send the gold wave after all the shrines, but this slower paced and more unique gameplay loop was something I found very enjoyable. Stealth became like a puzzle you could solve. Could I send units now, or should I wait until the next patrol passes? And so far, both levels of the DLC have been winners for me. I believe the Summoning Stone is at a random shrine, and sometimes you might uncover gold instead of it, or enemy summons, or maybe even more sentinels for your own army. Overall, level 2's a winner. Again, good job developers. Spoilers, Road was my favourite mission in the whole DLC.
Journey to Mount Festus itself. Only there will we find sufficient gold to reforge the Colossus and compel it to our cause. You leave Road in even greater ruin than when you arrived.
Level 3 is entitled The Colossus, and it's in Gilton. It's a bit of a race against the Empire to clear the map of gold. Your win con is to gather 1 million gold pieces, while the Empire around you is mining gold. There's an optional goal to do this all before they gather 100,000 pieces of gold, and you're given full reign to create a normal dungeon and reminded of some of the other tools you've got. The Aureate monolith's new, and if anything dies in its aura, it turns into a gold statue. Friend or foe, and they can be mined for gold, or you can just drop them straight into the forge. You can also use the monolith to drain gold from the surrounding area directly into your vault. There's a transmutation potion, the Ritual of Avarice, which converts mana to gold, and also the Blood Money spell, which can turn prisoners into gold statues. What I found worked best was just playing as normal. Expanding my dungeon and mining regularly gave me a decent amount of gold, and sending legions of golden sentinels to kidnap people and turn them into gold statues gave me a whole lot more. Of course, capturing Empire bases gives you their coffers too. There was this suspense in racing an enemy to gather gold, but they are much slower than you, and so that suspense leaves quite early. I imagine there's a route where you let them get too much of a lead on you, but you'd have to be really slow to let that happen. Casita's a combat underlord through and through. Your infinite health minions, now bolstered with the ability to turn what they kill into gold, turns this golden tornado into something much, much more powerful. I felt very evil. Like, it was evil. I was pulling these poor miners out of their dark holes and smelting them to bring this golden colossus to life. As a level, it's quite fun. The story is very on brand, though the pacing is a bit slow for me. The enemy commander here is one Lord Sapphire, a bard of sorts who has this huge collection of gold statues.
Qu'est-ce que c'est que ça? What have we here? An underlord with a cœur of gold? I would sculpt you and paint you, and compose chansons about you, if you were not a petit criminel here to seize our material.
Underlord, show this artisan that you too are adept in the art of sculpture by plundering his golden statues.
An enduring battle. It invigorates the emotions.
Well then, continue to...
Your Dark God is appealing to your greed throughout the level, and as a whole it felt like it was trying to be unique with its win con. but you can achieve it just by doing what you'd normally do. Sapphire is a very French bard, and dispatching him was a fun addition to the comedy. Of course, with all the gold gathered, we construct our Colossus and head to level 4. A lot of the DLC missions will have a click when you're ready to complete once you've achieved the Wincon, which was quite a nice addition if you're treating it like a cozy game. You can build a variety of dungeons once the pressure's off.
Agitated. Then again, the Feastians did abandon it for centuries. It will require little incentive to assault the Duke's capital dungeon.
Level 4 is entitled The Heart of Gold, and it takes place in Icor. It's the climax of the DLC, the capital dungeon and home of House Magnanimous. It reminded me a lot of the final level from the main campaign. There's this huge sprawling enemy dungeon with these different distinct areas. A huge workshop that's pumping out stone versions of your gold sentinels, a library full of mages, a large prison full of neutral units, and gateways bringing reinforcements dotted throughout the old mansion. It's a huge improvement on the last mission of the main campaign. There's these stone outcroppings you can bomb in strategic areas to attack House Magnanimous however you want. Sure, there's certain things you'd probably want to tackle first, but this mission does put a lot of choice to the player. You've got a lot of room to build a massive dungeon. The enemy is scheming. Do you want the 3 extra units for yourself first, and maybe take out the spawners? If you take out the workshop, you could stop them putting sentinels everywhere, and you could steal the resources they make to make your own sentinels. On top of this, you have the Colossus in your army, a big brute of a creature that you can heal with gold and will turn anything that dies around it into gold. It all flies straight to your coffers as well. This creates another situation where if you sent your legions of gold minions, you can use that combat to infinitely sustain them. Your best bet is actually just storming the place with a big golden tornado. When I did this mission, I took out the workshops first, then the prison, and then took out the gateways at my leisure. I had so much firepower that the enemy waves didn't come close to my dungeon, and my minions capturing enemy ground made it so I could just teleport legions of warriors wherever they were needed. This wasn't a desperate attempt to capture House Magnanimous, this was a gold-backed slaughter, just tearing through rooms and healing my minions with my infinite wealth. I'm sure there's a million ways to skin this cat, but I really just couldn't help myself. The new units you get just aren't balanced, there's no counter to them. If I encountered areas where they had more soldiers than me, I could just build more soldiers and use rituals and gold to sustain them. Not once did my coffers run low, and then I just started scuttling around the edges of the map, finding hidden shrines, pockets of neutral minions. The balance is just way off. I think if you want a decent challenge, try it without the golden tornado, otherwise you'll encounter no real resistance. The house itself's full of members of the Magnanimous bloodline that'll all talk throughout the mission about their golden invader, lamenting when you take their siblings out and turn them into golden statues.
My brother, never again shall I hear your sonorous songs.
The jewel is guarded by the Duke of Feastus himself. You have claimed a gateway.
I told you it would come to this, Papa. Did I not tell you this?
Sylvius, now is not the time for debate.
Your crimes against my house. Take heed of the power of the righteous Pistian constitution.
If you do take them all out, Mandalf makes a reappearance, but even he couldn't stop me as I stormed the core.
I am Mandalf the Gold. Who goes there?
Mandalf! Mandalf, my cousin-in-law! Thank Kira, we're saved!
What in the name of infernal nuisance? Underlord, vanquish this wretched wizard!
The Duke himself's a meaty boy with his cool golden armour, but he's no match for your units, and especially at the time you face him. I think I'd found a neutral pocket with 3 vampires in, and they would have been more than enough just on their own. With him dead, all that's left is just to get the heart.
Icor burns. The entire land of Feastus burns. And the last Colossus of the Orient army does what it was created to do. The heart of gold is yours, Casita.
Where am I? Am I dead? Are you Kira, Golden One?
Do you desire a golden duke in your dungeon? I leave you now, Casita, with the golden hoardings of the land of feasters. Defend them with your life, for I shall accept nothing less than your life if they are purloined by the Empire. Now, return home and wield the heart of gold to sate your heart of gold.
The ending doesn't talk about the main campaign or the future plans for our new supercharged Casita. I wish it did a bit more, but they do round it off as its own self-contained side story. You even get to keep the statues of the fallen magnanimous members you killed, so with the campaign over, what did I think? So for the conclusion, let's break it into two parts, and that'll be story and gameplay. For the story, it's very self-contained. I expected an expansion to build upon the cliffhanger, the ending of the main plot, but that seems to have just been left on the shelf. As it's its own self-contained short and very, short story, Casita charges through a new region, gets a new powerful minion, and then storms a powerful household for a gold MacGuffin. Once again, I felt the threads of something more that could have been done here. For 4 levels it was okay, but it was missing any sort of stake or real purpose to the story. It would have been great if, having got the artifact, Casita or the Dark Lord had made some goals for world domination. But she almost gained infinite power, and now everyone's dead that she could have ever subjected with it. In the main campaign there was a goddess and these forces of light that counterbalanced all the dark, but they're nowhere to be seen in this DLC. It's a big power trip but with very little payoff, so for story, 4 out of 10. Gameplay, the missions were unique in a lot of approaches on opening. A mission where you could only use constructs, a stealth mission, a race to mine gold, and then a big capstone storm the keep. These on paper sound cool, but when you get into the crunch behind the fluff, they fall a bit flat. Mission 1, for instance, you only had constructs and neutral units, but in gameplay, you'd only want to use the constructs anyway. They're crazy powerful, have infinite health, and if managed properly, there's no limitations to them. The limitation isn't limiting at all. It's not like I have to set up stationary defenses and can't rely on my minions. The gold sentinels could just blast through whatever they face. They're more mobile than your other minions. Mission 2 was the stealth mission, which when played correctly is a really fun challenge. But if you get spotted, nothing happens. In fact, again, you could probably just send a golden swarm and win. The gold race has a slow opponent, so who are you actually racing? And the final mission isn't a test of your skill or your planning, even though it really could be. Again, just throw gold at the problem and it goes away. It seems like they had some cool ideas, but they just weren't balanced in execution. You as the player can balance these yourself, but what's the likelihood the average player would? Give it a 5 out of 10. Overall, the DLC is a 5 out of 10 for introducing some cool concepts, but they're just not doing anything impactful with them. The story falls a bit flat and the gameplay shoots some quite unique level design in its own foot. The DLC costs $6.69 in the UK, but it doesn't add $6.69 to the gameplay for me. I'd wait until it's on sale. It's still a fun experience, but you might be left a little bit disappointed if you're coming fresh from the main game. Over and out, Smooth Brains.
Look, everyone! My Vinky was a key!
Only a bloody Dutchman.